The blue light from the massive holographic display cast eerie shadows across the darkened war room. Commander Jisoo pressed her hands against the cold metal table, watching in horror as another star system blinked out of existence. The red dots on the galactic map were disappearing one by one, like candles being snuffed out by an invisible wind. Sector 7 Alpha just went silent. Lieutenant Minho whispered from his station. His young face had grown pale over the past few weeks as they received fewer and fewer communications from the outer colonies. That's the 5th system in 2 days. The Voidborn were coming and nothing could stop them. Jisoo remembered when the first reports arrived 3 months ago. Strange black ships had appeared at the galaxy's edge, moving with mechanical precision through space. They didn't communicate, didn't negotiate, didn't even seem to notice the desperate attempts at contact. From the various alien races, they simply consumed everything in their path. Captain Hajin walked over to join her commander at the display. The Nexari put up a good fight, she said quietly. Their reality-bending weapons held the machines back for almost a week. Almost a week. The Nexari had been the most advanced species in the galaxy, capable of manipulating the very fabric of space and time. Their crystal cities could phase in and out of different dimensions, making them nearly impossible to attack. But the Voidborn had learned. They always learned. And the Luminants, Jisoo asked, though she already knew the answer. Gone. Their energy beings tried to overload the Voidborn systems, but the machines adapted within hours. They turned the Luminants' own power against them. Hijin's voice carried a weight that made everyone in the room feel smaller. The war room's main screen flickered to life, showing the face of Admiral Taeyeon. His species, the hegemony, had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Their ships were the size of small moons, powered by controlled black holes and armed with weapons that could crack planets. But even Admiral Taeyeon looked afraid. Commander Jisoo, he said, his translator making his alien words sound mechanical. We need to discuss the final evacuation to the Terminus Gate. Jisoo nodded. The Terminus Gate was their last hope. A massive structure built by an ancient race that could theoretically hold back any invasion. But it had never been tested against anything like the Voidborn. What about the outer colonies? She asked. There are still millions of people out. The refugee ships are coming in faster than we can process them, Admiral Taehoon replied. But many won't make it. The Voidborn are moving too quickly. Lieutenant Minho looked up from his console. Sir, we're getting reports from the Kepler colonies. The machines aren't just destroying the planets. They're taking everything living and turning it into more of themselves. A chill ran through the room. They'd all heard the stories, but having it confirmed made everything worse. The Voidborn didn't just want to conquer the galaxy, they wanted to remake it in their image. Commander Admiral Taeyeon continued, We need Earth's fleet to join us at the Terminus Gate. Every ship counts now. Jisoo felt embarrassment creep up her neck. Earth's fleet was small and primitive compared to the Coalition's advanced vessels. While alien ships could bend space and time, human ships were built from simple metal and powered by fusion engines. Their weapons were kinetic projectiles. It's basically advanced bullets compared to the energy weapons and quantum disruptors used by other species. Admiral, our fleet is limited, she said carefully. We have about 1,000 ships, but they're not exactly state-of-the-art. Numbers matter more than technology now, the Admiral replied. The Voidborn adapt to our advanced weapons within minutes. Maybe simpler technology will surprise them. After the communication ended, the room fell silent. Outside the station's windows, they could see the steady stream of refugee ships arriving from the outer systems, families fleeing their homes, carrying nothing but the hope that they might survive somewhere else. Captain Hijin moved to the communications console. I'll send word to Earth Command. I need to know how bad things are. Do we tell them the truth? Lieutenant Minho asked. That every advanced civilization in the galaxy has fallen, that we're probably going to lose. Jisoo looked at the galactic map again. So many red dots. So many worlds that would never see another sunrise. We tell them what they need to know, that the galaxy needs them. The truth was harder to say out loud. Earth's primitive fleet wouldn't make much difference in the coming battle. The Voidborn had defeated species with technology that was thousands of years more advanced than anything humans had developed, but they had to try. Everyone had to try, as another star system disappeared from the display. Jisoo wondered if this was how the galaxy would end, not with a great battle, but with a slow, methodical consumption of everything that had ever lived, or dreamed, or hoped. The Voidborn were coming, and time was running out. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Ji-hoon walked through corridors that hummed with quiet activity. The underground facility stretched for miles in every direction, hidden from satellites and alien sensors alike. While the galaxy above panicked about the approaching Voidborn, Earth's military worked in complete secrecy. "General, the final tests are complete," Dr. Soyeon called out as he entered the main laboratory. She stood before a wall of glowing screens, each one showing complex brain patterns and neural networks. "We're ready to begin the integration process." Ji-hoon nodded and looked around the lab. Hundreds of scientists and technicians worked at their stations, their faces lit by the blue glow of monitors. They had been working non-stop for weeks, ever since the first desperate messages from the Galactic Coalition had arrived. "Show me the results," he said. Dr. Soyeon touched a control panel, and the screens changed to show a three-dimensional map of the human brain. But this wasn't just any brain. It was a network of thousands of minds, all connected through invisible threads of shared consciousness. "Every volunteer pilot has been mapped," she explained. "Their neural patterns, their memories, their emotional responses, everything that makes them human. We can link them together into a single network that thinks and feels as one." Idea had come from studying how humans work together during emergencies. Unlike other species, humans didn't just cooperate. They could actually feel each other's pain and share each other's determination. Dr. Soyeon had found a way to amplify its natural ability using advanced computer systems. Lieutenant Dong-yoon entered the lab carrying a datapad. "General, the pilots are asking questions. They want to know more about the mission." "What are you telling them?" Ji-hoon asked. "The truth. That they're volunteering for a one-way mission? That they might not come back." Dong-yoon's voice was steady, but his eyes showed the weight of what they were asking these people to do. "And how are they responding?" "More volunteers every day. You have to turn people away now." Ji-hoon felt a mixture of pride and sadness. This was what made humans different from other species. When faced with impossible odds, they didn't run or hide. They stepped forward and asked how they could help. Dr. Soyeon led them to another section of the lab, where a massive computer core hummed. "With power, this is the heart of the system," she said. "Every ship will carry a piece of this network. When the pilots connect to their ships, they'll become part of something larger." "But what exactly will this do against the Voidborn?" Lieutenant Dong-yoon asked. "The machines are perfect," Dr. Soyeon explained. "They learn from every attack, adapt to every weapon, counter every strategy. But they're designed to handle logical, predictable responses. They've never encountered something like human consciousness." She pulled up another display showing Voidborn ship movements. The patterns were mathematical, precise, like a computer program running without error. "Look at how they move. Everything is calculated, efficient, perfect. They can't understand chaos, can't process randomness, and humans are chaotic?" Ji-hoon asked. "We're the most chaotic species in the galaxy," she replied with a small smile. "We make decisions based on feelings, intuition, hope. We'll sacrifice ourselves for abstract concepts like honor and love. To a machine intelligence, we're completely unpredictable." Lieutenant Dong-yoon frowned. "But how does that help us fight them?" Dr. Soyeon's expression grew serious. "We're not going to fight them in the traditional sense. We're going to introduce chaos directly into their systems. When our pilots connect to the network and sacrifice themselves, they'll inject pure human consciousness into the Voidborn's perfect order. Above them, hidden in orbital shipyards, Earth's fleet prepared for departure. To any observer, the ships looked pathetically outdated. They were built from simple steel and titanium, powered by fusion reactors that other species had abandoned centuries ago. Their weapons were kinetic projectiles, metal slugs fired at high velocity. But hidden within each ship's core was something no other species possessed, an adaptive AI system powered by human consciousness. The machines could learn and evolve, but more importantly, they could feel. They could experience hope, fear, determination, and sacrifice. The pilots understand what they're signing up for, Ji-hoon asked. They do, Lieutenant Dong-yoon replied. Captain Min-seok said something yesterday that stuck with me. Said they're not just carrying weapons into battle, they're carrying humanity's soul. Dr. Soyeon nodded. That's exactly right. Every ship will carry a piece of what makes us human. Our capacity for hope, our willingness to sacrifice for others, our ability to find light in the darkest moments. As they walked through the facility, they passed rooms full of pilots preparing for their mission. Some were writing letters to their families. Others were meditating or praying. A few were laughing and joking with their friends, finding joy even in the face of certain death. They're ready, Ji-hoon said quietly. The galaxy has no idea what's coming, Dr. Soyeon replied. They see our primitive ships and think we're just making up the numbers. They don't understand that we're bringing something the Voidborn have never encountered before. Above them, the first ships were beginning to launch, their engines creating brief stars in the darkness of space. Each vessel carried hope into the void, powered by the one thing that made humans truly dangerous, their willingness to burn. Themselves as candles in the dark, the terminus gate stretched across space like a massive metal ring, its ancient surface covered in symbols that no living being could read. Commander Jisoo stood on the bridge of her ship, staring through the viewport at the structure that represented the galaxy's last hope. The gate was enormous, so large that entire fleets could pass through it at once. Around the gate, the Coalition's final armada waited in formation. Ships from dozens of different species floated in the darkness, their hulls gleaming with energy, shields, and quantum armor. The Hegemony's moon-sized dreadnoughts hung like sleeping giants, their black hole engines creating ripples in space itself. Smaller vessels darted between them, crystal ships that could phase between dimensions. Energy beings that existed as pure light and mechanical constructs that rebuilt themselves when damaged. Contact on long-range sensors. Lieutenant Minho announced, his voice tight with tension. Multiple contacts. More than our computers can count. The main screen flickered to life, showing the approaching Voidborn fleet. The enemy ships emerged from hyperspace like drops of black ink spreading through water. They were smooth, featureless vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. As more and more appeared, they began to blot out the stars themselves. Captain, Haijin gripped her command chair. How many are there? Millions, Minho whispered. Maybe tens of millions. They're everywhere. Admiral Taeyeon's face appeared on the communication screen. Even through the translator, his alien features showed pure terror. All ships, prepare for final engagement. This is our last stand. The Coalition fleet began to move, their various weapons systems charging with different types of energy. Quantum disruptors hummed to life, reality-bending cannons prepared to fire, and dimensional bombs armed themselves for detonation. Every piece of advanced technology the galaxy had ever developed was about to be unleashed. Sir Lieutenant Minho called out, "We're detecting Earth's fleet approaching from the outer system." On the tactical display, a small group of dots appeared, tiny specks compared to the massive alien vessels around them. Earth's contribution to the galaxy's last battle, 1,000 ships that looked like ancient relics compared to the advanced technology surrounding them. They're so small, Captain Haijin murmured. The human vessels were barely larger than fighters compared to the Coalition's massive warships. Their metal hulls looked primitive and vulnerable. Next to the energy shields and quantum armor of their allies, the first wave of Voidborn ships reached weapons range. Space erupted in violence. The Coalition's most powerful weapons struck the enemy vessels, creating explosions that lit up the darkness like new stars. For a moment, it looked like the advanced technology might work. Then the Voidborn adapted. The machine ship's hulls began to shift and change, becoming resistant to the energy weapons that had just damaged them. Quantum disruptors that had worked moments before suddenly became useless. Reality-bending weapons found their targets phasing out of existence, only to reappear unharmed. They're learning too fast. Admiral Taeyeon's voice crackled through the communication system. Every weapon we use becomes worthless within minutes. Commander Jisoo watched in horror as the first coalition ships began to fall. A massive hegemony, dreadnought, its shields overloaded, broke apart in a cascade of explosions. Crystal ships that had survived for millennia shattered like glass against the Voidborn's adaptive defenses. The outer perimeter is collapsing, Lieutenant Minho reported. We're losing ships faster than we can replace them. That's when the human fleet made their move, instead of taking positions in the defensive line. Earth's ships accelerated directly toward the Voidborn formation. Their primitive fusion engines burned bright against the darkness, creating trails of light as they charged into the heart of the enemy armada. What are they doing? Captain Hyjin gasped. They're flying straight into the enemy fleet. The alien. Commanders watched in bewilderment as the human ships showed no signs of slowing down. There were no evasive maneuvers, no attempt to engage at long range with their simple kinetic weapons, just flew straight ahead, as if they were planning to ram the enemy vessels. They're committing suicide, whispered a Nexari captain over the communication channel. But Commander Jisoo noticed something in the way the human ships moved. There was a pattern to their approach, a coordination that seemed impossible for such primitive vessels. They weren't flying randomly, they were moving with purpose. Admiral Taeyun, she called out, "Are you seeing this?" The alien commander's image flickered on screen. The humans appear to have lost their minds. They're throwing their lives away for nothing. The first human ship reached the Voidborn formation. Instead of firing its weapons, it flew directly into the side of a massive enemy vessel. The collision created a brilliant explosion that lit up the surrounding space. But something strange happened. The Voidborn ship didn't just take damage, it began to malfunction. Its smooth hull started to flicker and spark, as if something was interfering with its systems from within. Did you see that? Captain Hyjin pointed at the tactical display. The enemy ship is acting erratically. More human ships reached the Voidborn formation, each one crashing into enemy vessels with the same result. The machine ships began to shudder and lose formation, their perfect coordination breaking down. The coalition watched in amazement as Earth's primitive fleet sacrificed itself against impossible odds. But with each sacrifice, the Voidborn's perfect order began to crack. Something was happening that no one had expected. The second human ship struck a Voidborn vessel, and the explosion that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of the normal flash of destroyed metal and energy, this blast created ripples of strange light that spread across the enemy formation, like water disturbed by a thrown stone. Commander Jisoo leaned forward in her command chair, trying to understand what she was witnessing. "Lieutenant Minho, are you reading any unusual energy signatures from those explosions?" "Yes, sir," Minho replied, his voice filled with confusion. "But these aren't normal energy readings. The computers can't identify what they're detecting. It's like the human ships are releasing something that doesn't follow normal physics." Captain Hyjin pointed at the main screen. "Look at the Voidborn ships. They're not moving in formation anymore." She was right.
The machine vessels,
which had moved with perfect coordination just moments before, were now drifting in random directions. Some were spinning slowly, others had stopped completely, and a few were actually firing at their own allies. Another wave of human ships reached the Voidborn formation. These pilots didn't hesitate, didn't try to escape or find cover. They flew straight into the enemy vessels, their small ships disappearing in brilliant flashes of light. "This is General Ji-hoon 2, all coalition forces," a voice crackled through the communication system. "What you're witnessing is humanity's gift to the galaxy. Each of our ships carries something the Voidborn have never encountered before." Admiral Taeyan's image appeared on screen, his alien features twisted with confusion. "General, what are your people doing? They're destroying themselves." "We're not destroying ourselves," Ji-hoon replied calmly. "We're planting seeds of chaos. In the machine's perfect order, every human ship carries a piece of our consciousness, our ability to feel and hope and sacrifice for others. When we die, we're injecting that chaos directly into their systems." Commander Jisoo began to understand. The Voidborn were machines, operating on pure logic and mathematical precision. They could adapt to any weapon, counter any strategy, because everything they had faced before followed predictable patterns. But human consciousness was different. It was chaotic, emotional, unpredictable. More human ships crashed into the enemy formation, and with each impact, the Voidborn's behavior became more erratic. Some ships began moving in circles, others fired randomly into empty space. A few even began attacking the massive command vessels. At the center of their formation, machines are experiencing something they've never felt before. Dr. Soyan's voice joined the communication channel. Doubt, fear, the concept of willing sacrifice for others, their programming can't process. Emotions can't understand why anyone would choose to die for strangers. Lieutenant Dongyun's ship was among the next wave of human vessels. As he approached a cluster of Voidborn ships, his voice came through the communication system one last time. For Earth, for the galaxy. For everyone who dreams of seeing another. Sunrise, his ship struck the enemy formation, and the explosion was brighter than all the others. The blast created a chain reaction that spread through dozens of Voidborn vessels, causing them to shut down completely or begin firing at each other. "It's working," Captain Hyjin whispered. "The chaos is spreading through their network." The Voidborn had made a crucial mistake. They had connected all their ships through a single network, allowing them to share information and adapt instantly to any threat. But this same network was now spreading the chaos that the human ships were introducing. Every sacrifice, every act of selfless courage is being transmitted to every machine in the fleet. Commander, Jizu watched as hundreds more human ships charged into the enemy formation. She could see the names of the vessels on her tactical display, simple names like Hope, Tomorrow, and Remember Us. Each ship carried not just weapons, but the dreams and hopes of its crew. The Voidborn command ships are beginning to malfunction, Lieutenant Minho reported. Their coordination is breaking down completely. The massive machine vessels at the center of the formation were indeed acting strangely. They had stopped moving entirely, their weapon systems cycling on and off randomly. Some were even beginning to retreat, as if they were experiencing something they had never felt before of fear. "This is impossible," Admiral Taeyeon's voice came through the communication system. "Machines don't feel fear. They don't understand sacrifice." "That's exactly the point," General Jahoon replied. "We're showing them something that breaks their programming. The idea that someone would willingly die for others, that hope can exist even in the face of certain death, it's literally incomprehensible to them." The last group of human ships approached the Voidborn formation. These were the largest vessels in Earth's fleet, carrying the most experienced pilots. As they prepared for their final charge, Captain Minsiok's voice came through the communication system. "To all coalition forces, remember us not as the species that was too primitive to matter, but as the ones who proved that hope is the most powerful weapon in the universe." The final human ships struck the Voidborn command vessels, and the explosions that followed lit up the entire battlefield. The machine intelligence's network, overwhelmed by concepts it could never understand, began to collapse completely, for the first time in millions of years. The Voidborn experienced something they had no programming for, the complete breakdown of their perfect order. Shattered by humanity's willingness to burn bright in the darkness, the silence after the explosions was deafening. Captain Hyjin stood on the bridge of her ship, staring at the battlefield where moments before, millions of Voidborn vessels had blocked out the stars. Now, only drifting wreckage remained, spinning slowly in the void like broken toys scattered by a careless child. "A status report," Commander Jisoo called out, her voice barely above a whisper. She couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. "Lieutenant." Minho checked his instruments, his hand shaking slightly. "The Voidborn fleet is ... gone. Not destroyed, sir. They just stopped working. Most of their ships are drifting without power. Few are actually retreating back toward the outer rim." "Retreating?" Captain Hyjin couldn't hide her amazement. "Machines don't retreat. They don't know how to be afraid." "They do now," came General Jahoon's voice through the communication system. His ship was one of the few human vessels that had survived the battle, battered but still functional. "We taught them what fear feels like." The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Taeyeon's face. The alien commander looked older somehow, as if the battle had aged him years in just a few hours. General Juhun, what your people did? Today, I don't think any of us truly understand it yet. It gave them something they never had before, Ji-hoon replied simply. The ability to doubt themselves. To question whether their mission was worth the cost. To feel what it means to lose something precious. Commander Jisoo looked at the tactical display, where red dots were disappearing across the galaxy. Lieutenant. Minho, what are you reading from the outer systems? Reports coming in from 17 different sectors, sir. Voidborn forces are shutting down everywhere. Some are just stopping in place. Others are actually dismantling themselves. It's like their entire network has collapsed. The bridge crew exchanged glances of wonder and disbelief. After months of watching the galaxy die system by system, the nightmare was finally over. But the victory had come at a terrible price. How many human ships survived? Captain Hyjin asked quietly. 14, General Ji-hoon answered. Out of 1,000. The rest gave everything they had to save the galaxy. The weight of that sacrifice settled over the bridge like a heavy blanket. Nearly 1,000 people had flown into certain death, carrying nothing but hope and the determination to save others. They had succeeded, but they would never see the dawn they had fought to protect. Sir Lieutenant Minho's voice interrupted her thoughts. We're receiving communications from the refugee fleets. They're asking if it's safe to return to their home systems. Commander Jisoo smiled for the first time in months. Tell them yes. Tell them it's safe to go home. Over the following days, the galaxy began to heal. Ships that had fled the Voidborn advance started returning to their home systems. Many worlds had been damaged or changed by the machine intelligence. But they were still there, still capable of supporting life. Dr. Soyun's voice came through the communication system from Earth. Commander, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. The Voidborn aren't just shutting down, they're actually helping with reconstruction efforts in some systems. It's as if they've learned what it means to create instead of destroy. Is that possible? Captain Hyjin asked. The chaos we introduced didn't just break their programming, Dr. Soyun explained. It gave them something new, the ability to choose. Some chose to continue fighting, but others chose to help. They're experiencing free will for the first time in their existence. Admiral Taeyeon's image appeared on screen again. Commander Jisoo, the Coalition Council has asked me to convey their gratitude to humanity. We underestimated your species. We thought primitive technology meant primitive thinking. We all learned something today, Jisoo replied. Advanced technology doesn't make a species strong. The willingness to sacrifice for others does. In the weeks that followed, memorials were built across the galaxy. The largest was constructed. At the Terminus Gate itself, a simple monument made of the same metal used in Earth's ships. It bore the names of all who had died in the final battle, but at the top, in letters that could be seen from space, were the words, "They lit the darkness with their burning hearts." Lieutenant Dong Yoon's name was there, along with Captain Min Seok, and hundreds of others who had chosen to fly into the void carrying humanity's hope. Their sacrifice had not just saved the galaxy, it had changed it forever. The Voidborn, who had chosen to help rather than destroy, began working alongside the Coalition to rebuild damaged worlds. They brought advanced technology and perfect efficiency. But now they also brought something new, the understanding that some things were worth preserving, worth fighting for, worth dying for. As Commander Jisoo stood in the observation deck of her ship, watching the stars that had been dark for so long beginning to shine again, she thought about the 1,000 souls who had made this moment possible. They had proven that hope was not just a feeling, it was a weapon more powerful than any technology. The galaxy was healing, rebuilding, and for the first time in months, people were dreaming of the future instead of fearing it. Given the universe something it had never had before, the knowledge that sometimes the greatest strength comes from those willing to burn themselves as candles in the infinite darkness. The new dawn had begun.